So why do you reckon you sliced that one, Glenn? Well, I don't know. Maybe I swung too fast. What did your club face do? Did I tee the ball down too low? I reckon I had an open club face. Teed up too high. What about that club face? I know what it was. I turned my hips too fast. Maybe your club face was open. Did I hang back? Maybe your club face was open. Maybe I overswung. Maybe your club face was open. Swung too hard. Was your club face open? I hit out the heel. So a heel strike can cause a bit of fade. It does impart fade spin on the ball. I came over the top. I have that conversation or a version of it every week. The fact is that a lot of golfers aren't really aware of why a ball does what it does. And it's important that golfers develop those tools and start to have more understanding of what causes the ball to, in this case, slice. So, in case you hadn't guessed it yet, today's subject is about an open club face. If you're slicing the golf ball, then there's a very good chance, a very high probability that you have an open club face. And that means at impact. So you can have the best swing in the world, the mechanics are great, approaching the ball from slightly on the inside, everything's set up for a straight shot or even a little draw. If your club face is open at impact, there's only one thing the ball can do, and that's slice. Now we talked about over the top as a possible reason why a ball slices, and that's connected, for sure it is. But which came first? We're talking about the chicken and egg scenario here. Which came first, the open club face or the over the top move? And in 99% of cases, in my opinion, it's the open club face. So this is what happens. A guy gets to a range, or a girl, hits a couple of shots with an open club face. For whatever reason, it can be the grip, it can be the release pattern through impact, lots of different reasons which we're going into today. But we see a few shots go over to the right-hand side, and that's obviously for a right-hander. Curves off to the right-hand side, only takes 2 or 3 shots, and you know what happens then? That player doesn't want to hit that shot anymore. That player wants to hit it closer to the target. So what happens? Start to come over the top or swing to the left, some aim left. The swing path starts to head to the left-hand side for a right-hander, and that obviously exaggerates the spin being placed on the ball, and then we get a bigger slice. And we see that player go through years and years of golf, aiming down the left-hand side into the trees or coming over the top more and more, a self-perpetuating pattern that is very difficult to break. And it all stemmed from those first few shots, could have been with a driver, might have been with a 5-iron, with the club face being open, few shots to go to the open side, and it happens for left-handers as well, and that player is then stuck in that rut, trying to fix swing mechanics, trying to approach from the inside, but if the club face is open, good luck with that. It's still going to slice, it's still going to go out to the right for a right-hander and to the left for a left-hander. Now we talked about impact there as a possible option, so hitting a shot out of the heel, and that shot actually was out the heel there. There's a bit of an imprint there. It puts a bit of fade spin on the ball, and with a driver that's exaggerated quite a lot, and it does create a little bit more curve. But we're focusing on that open club face. Obviously we want to strike the ball much more centrally and more consistently, and if you pop up into the corner here, there's a drill to help you to do just that. Let's strike it more out the middle. But today we're focusing on that club face position, and we're going to go through the different ways that we can improve that club face position and have it squarer. So let's start with the setup. Let's start with the driver actually. So with the driver, we're talking about the adjustability that a lot of these drivers have in the loft. So the mistake a lot of people make is they hit a high shot because the club face is open, and they think, oh, well, I want to get it down, and then they reduce the loft. So that's what we have on this driver. It's adjusted down a little bit, taking the loft off of the driver, but what that does, it also opens the club face. Have a look at this setup position. So what we can do is adjust that. You get your wrench with your driver, and let's undo that a little bit. So if you're a slicer of the golf ball, that means the club face tends to be open. So I want you to loft up a little bit. Now you think, well, it's going to go higher, but if we can square that club face up, then you're going to reduce your spin and you're actually going to hit it further and straighter. So I'm going to loft up a couple of points here. Not a lot, just a half a degree. You get your torque wrench in here, you tighten it up, and a lot of drivers these days are adjustable with their loft. This is the Strixon Z785. Couple of clicks, that's nice and tight. Loft it up a little bit, and now it sits a little bit differently on the ground. Have a look at that. So you can definitely tweak your driver a little bit to help you if you're hitting the shot with open club face. You can adjust it slightly and experiment with it. It really will make a little bit of a difference in what that club face is doing at impact. And let's face it, a couple of degrees at impact means a big difference when it comes to hitting fairways and trying to hit draws. Now, the other mistake that a lot of people make is that their iron alignment isn't very good. So if we get down here, what we see is that the iron alignment, this is a 6 iron, a lot of people look at that top edge and get the club face a little bit closed at the setup, and then they get hold of the driver, and their alignment might be pretty good with the driver, but because they're closed with the iron, they've learnt how to open the club face through impact. And that's really important, is we've got to make sure that we're square with every club through the set. So with the iron, I've talked about this before, we've got to make sure that the leading edge is square to the target, and with the driver, we've got to make sure that the top edge is square to the target. It's a little bit different. That's how the clubs are built, and we've got to make sure that we're square right through the set, from sand wedge and putter right through to driver. So if you're slicing your driver, but your irons are hitting straight or even a little bit of draw, you've got to really look at your iron alignment. It's more than likely that your driver alignment's pretty good, but your iron alignment might be closed. That's something you really have to look at. Right, let's get back to what's truly important, that's impact. If you're slicing your drives, that means your club face open at impact. So let's focus on that. And that's where you really need to check your grip. Now, if you hold the club that way, and you may have been taught to have your thumbs on top there. Now, what we see here is that the wrist and the glove is to the side of the grip. And if we just hang our arms naturally, you'll notice that most of us will have a slight inward rotation of your hands. So you can start to see a little bit of the badge of my glove of my left hand. That's what I want to see when you're setting up to your drives as well. So instead of having the thumb on top, just tweak it over to the side a little bit so you can start to see some of the badge. A lot of coaches out there have talked about 2 knuckles. That's a good thing to check out. You should be able to see a couple of knuckles there. Or I like to look at the line formed by your thumb and forefinger. If your thumb's on top, then that line formed by your thumb and forefinger is pointing to your chin, and that's what we call weak. So if you're leaving the club face open, check out your grip. If your wrist and the glove is to the side there, it's a little on the weak side, tweak it over, make sure you can see a couple of knuckles, and the line on your glove there formed by your thumb and forefinger, get that pointing to your right shoulder more. That's going to be a stronger position, a stronger grip, which means a stronger club face, and a lot easier for you to square up through impact. Let's have a look at some other areas in the swing where the club face might be open and affect your club face at impact. So if we start nice and square, we've got our driver sorted now, we've got our grip sorted, it's a little bit stronger. Now here's a common one, opening the club face up in the backswing. So what is square? Well, if we just head back here with that takeaway without any manipulation, we'll see that the club face is actually pointing down a little bit. It should be around about in line with your spine angle. Now, if you're returning the club face squarely at impact and consistently, if you've got plenty of distance, don't worry about what that takeaway is looking like. It doesn't matter. Impact is where it's at, but if you're continually hitting shots with an open club face and slicing shots, then you've got to check that club face in different points of the swing as well. So check it in the takeaway. You can video yourself and zoom right in here. We want that club face roughly in line with your spine angle here. So that means that that's open. That means that I've manipulated my wrists and forearms, opened the club face up a little bit. It's pointing straight up. I'm sure lots of videos have said the club should be pointing up at this position. Whereas that position there, square and aligned with my spine angle, is a much more repeatable and stronger club face position and easier to repeat, easier to square up the club face through impact. Really important. Right, let's have another look at another position. So we get back to here, let's have a look at the top. If we've got that club face pointing downwards, that's open. What we're looking for here is the club face to be pointing more towards the sky, and that's going to be in line with your forearm, or maybe even pointing a little bit more towards the sky than that. we're pointing the club down and maybe you're cupping that wrist to create that position, or your grip is weak, then we're going to see this downward position of the club face. It's possible to hit the ball straight from there, but that player is then going to have to release harder and really try to work hard in the downswing to try to square up the club face. It's a weak position. Yes, there are some tour pros out there that get the club in that position, but they've hit so many balls that they've got good at squaring up the club face through impact. But if you're slicing, if your club face is open, here's another spot to check out. Get it on video and have a look to see if that club face is pointing downwards. Let's get it round in line with that lead forearm, or maybe even pointing a little bit more skyward than that. A good example is Dustin Johnson. Okay, he bows the wrist and that club face pointing right up in the sky. That's a very strong position, and one would expect a player like that to hit a lot of hooks, but he manages to control it. Again, the tour pros, they hit so many balls that they can literally make anything work. Open club face, closed club face at the top of the swing, they can square it up. But if you're struggling to control it, that's a spot to check out. How do you know if your club face has squared up at impact? Well, the golf ball tells you. Let's have a hit with one. You hit a straight shot, and assuming you struck it pretty well, that tells you your club face is square at impact. It doesn't tell you whether your club face is square at the takeaway or the top of the swing. You'll need to check video to have a look at that. But the golf ball is your ultimate guide. If that's curving off to the right-hand side, you know the face is open. If it's curving to the left, for a right-hander, then you know it's closed. And it's really important to start to be aware of what's happening at impact so that you can self-improve, so that you can make some adjustments going forward and have more awareness of what's going on. Very powerful. There's one more thing to be aware of here, and that's your release pattern. So the release pattern is basically what's happening with your wrists and the club as you come into the golf ball. So most golfers will have a certain amount of hinge or lag coming into the golf ball, and then the release means that the club is then released by the hands and the wrists coming through impact here. And a lot of players have quite an aggressive release where the arms cross over. And a player that does too much will be closing the club face too much and hitting a lot of left shots, a lot of hooks for a right-hander. But there are players out there, if you've got an open club face, then it might be the case where you're coming through here and the glove is still on top of the trail hand. And if you have a look at the club face there, that's pointing up into the sky. And if you're hitting a lot of shots to the right, then this is also a position that you can adjust and maybe improve and release a little bit differently so you can square up the club face. So what we're expecting here is actually the club face to rotate. Forget about all that you've heard about square to square. The club face does not. It's physically impossible for the club face to be square all the way through impact here. It's got to release, it's got to rotate. As it pivots around our body, the club face is going to rotate around, and there's a typical position that you'd expect to see the driver in, videoing your swing, with the toe of the club pointing up into the air and the club face pointing behind you. If you're here like this and you're hitting a lot of shots with an open face, then that's something that you can adjust. How? Well, you've got to get out onto the range and see if you can actually release a little bit faster. Have a couple of swings where you're hearing the club whoosh through the air, being nice and soft in the hands, nice and relaxed, and really feel like you're releasing the club. It's a bit like throwing stones and skimming stones across a pond. You're actually releasing the wrists, and you've got to be relaxed and comfortable to achieve that. If you're tight and tense and you're hanging on and you're seeing this club face come through here, then you're not releasing the club. Let's have one more go. Felt good. Golf ball tells me that the club face was square, and you can check out your videos to look at those different positions in the swing to see if your club face is square all the way through the swing, but ultimately it comes down to impact and repeatability and consistency of that club face at impact. Understand why a golf ball slices, and you're in a much more powerful position to improve it and adjust it. And I guarantee you, if you focus on that club face get that in a stronger position, squarer, then you're going to improve your swing path and your swing mechanics as well. It goes a long way to improving your swing and building a more powerful swing as well. Thanks so much for watching. If you're new to this channel, then please hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell in the corner there for your notifications of new videos. We bring out a new video every week, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks very much. Are you the best golfer you can be?